All right, well, welcome everyone to our webinar this evening for the class of 2020, Staying Positive and Pushing Forward, the class of 2020 and their journeys to success. I'm Erin Shields, Director, Alumni and Employer Engagement, and I'm here with my colleague, Ray Engel, Assistant Vice President, Career and Professional Development. And tonight, Ray is going to go over some tips and pointers for the job search strategy in a difficult climate, such as what we're in right now, and also share some information about what we do know your classmates from 2020 are doing. And then we're going to hear from a panel of your fellow classmates who will share their story, how they managed their job search during this time, and share their recommendations. There'll also be time for Q&A following that, and we'll go over some additional resources. So at this time, I'm going to let Ray Engel get us started.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm so glad you're here and happy to meet you. I think we're gonna have a good evening, but tonight I just want to take a few minutes for those of you who've joined because let's say you're still looking and you have some concerns. I want to give you just a little bit of information to help you understand what this job market is like and what you can be doing. And it's very brief, and then I want to focus on some of the success stories of the people in the room who've been so gracious to pop on and agree to share their stories. So I'm going to start with what we're going to do. We're going to talk about job searching in a pandemic, a brief overview of job search strategies, and then we'll do the stories from the 2020 graduates and some Q&A. So I do want to explain that during a pandemic or any time when the job market is unfavorable to graduates, there are a variety of job search strategies, and in career and professional development, we teach those strategies to everyone all the time. And so there's not a specific job search strategy for a tight or challenging job market, but the amount of time spent on certain things may change. So you may spend less time at in-person networking kinds of connections and more virtual connections. But there are a variety of things that you can do, and the process can take longer and can require additional reserves of positivity and patience. And I do want to talk to you a little bit about our class of 2020. We've been following them closely like we do every year with our graduating class. To give you an example, the graduating class of 2019, their success rate was 95.5, which means that 4.5% were still looking for jobs or trying to get in graduate school, those kinds of things. That's a really positive job market. Right now, we're not done compiling that information for this class, but we will continue collecting information through December of 2020 and create the success rate for this group. But right now, we know about 45% of the students have reported to us what they're doing, and right now the success rate is 85%. So we're looking at a 15% underemployed, not unemployed or still seeking. Does that make sense? So that shows that there is some stress in the market, and it certainly is a result of everything that's going on with the pandemic. So I just want you to be aware of that. We're aware of it, and we're trying to do things like this to support you along the way. How many of you have ever heard this statement? It's not what you know, but who you know. Have you heard that? I'm going to ask you to ignore that statement and to reimagine that statement as this. It is what you know. You've earned a college degree, and it's your qualification that people are really seeking. So don't discount that when buy into that first statement. It is who you know. You've got to have connections and stay positive and meet people and be getting out there. But I also say it's who knows you. So you've got to keep building that network. So it's just a little bit of a, try not to think of it as I don't know enough people. It is important that you have this degree, and it's very marketable. So to me, there are three main components of a job search. When you're looking for a job, you are looking for actual job vacancies, You are looking for organizations who hire in the area that you want to go into, and you are looking for people who can influence and be helpful in that process. So I would say, I don't know what your job search is looking like, but if you're spending a lot of time focused on just applying for jobs that are online, you're not doing enough to meet people and to get an understanding of organizations. So here's what I would suggest as a kind of rhythm for your job search. I would say identify 10 vacancies that you can find online and apply for them. Then identify 10 organizations and research them, learn about what they have to offer, the types of people they hire, the positions that they have, and then identify 10 people and connect with them so that you're realizing this job search is more than just applying to vacancies that I see online and then repeat it. And if I would say that if you're making your job search your full-time job, if you're able to do this, let's say 10, 10, and 10, every 2 or 3 days, you're going to be making some great progress. It just takes a little more patience in this market. Now, just don't rely too heavily on just online resources and communication. So I'm going to say stay positive, focus on yes. So it can be very discouraging when you feel like everybody else knows exactly what they're doing, everybody else has a job. But stay positive and focus on, I'm doing the right stuff to move forward. Take care of yourself, get exercise, sleep, and eat well. Volunteer. I think it really does help to kind of be moving and doing some things that can help you get some additional experience or develop skills. Consider a project work, and we have that on ZGS Connect, and we will show you a little bit about that later. And consider learning some new skills. Things like LinkedIn Learning, I've really kind of grown to really love, and take this time that you're not employed to learn new things that you can potentially market. I would say develop a group of people, some job search support network for yourself to help you kind of stay motivated and moving forward. And then of course, use career and professional development, because you can use our services throughout your lifetime and certainly while you're seeking now. So I said I was going to be brief. That's all that I want to share. I'm going to turn it over to Erin to introduce our panelists, and we'll start hearing their stories.
Great, thanks, Ray. So our 4 panelists tonight, I'm going to go through and introduce. First, we have Alexis Kozra, special education preschool teacher at Hallett Elementary, which is here in Medical Lake, Washington. We have Dominic Vinti, project coordinator at KBC Advisors in San Diego area. Sarah Skornick, client relationship manager at Vanguard, and she's in Phoenix. And Taylor Carnevale, incoming California State Executive Fellow. Currently, she's located in Los Angeles. So for each of our panelists, I'd like you to share a little bit about your background, major, time at Gonzaga, and then talk about your job search story. Now, while you're doing this, please include what you would consider the challenging parts. Where did you need help? And then also share with us what advice you would give your classmates who are still working on the job search process. We will start with Alexis.
All right. Hi, Zags. I'm Alexis. I just graduated this past May with a degree in special education, certification in elementary education, and endorsement in early childhood. Teaching is something I've known I've wanted to do since I was really little, and coming to Gonzaga made that a reality. So I went to school for 5 years, and in that time, I built really good relationships with professors, program coordinators, teachers that I had worked with in practicums. And this whole time I was always told, especially being special ed, Lexi, you will not have problems getting a job. Special ed is something that, as Ray had said, there was there's a lot of vacancy. It's a hard job to fill for a lot of people. So I always felt confident and was reassured by the people in my corner that it wouldn't be too hard for me to get a job. However, I did not think that I would be having to look for a job in the middle of a pandemic. I started looking for jobs right after graduation, kind of in the middle of all this COVID stuff. When we ended, I did a full year of student teaching. I did my first semester in the fall last year in special ed, and then I began my general ed student teaching that was cut short by the COVID stuff. And I did job interviews, and I actually got offers on the west side of the state. However, I wanted to stay local in Spokane, so I did decline those. And then I kind of regretted that, because as soon as I did, and I applied for, I think, probably 30 different jobs in Spokane all summer, it was crickets, and I didn't hear anything. And I wasn't even getting interviews, and it was so mortifying that my whole time at Gonzaga, I had been told that I would have no problem getting a job. And then here I am struggling to find that job. So with that, at the very beginning, first thing I did was look to my mentors that I've had in the past. I remained in contact with my program coordinator, Kathy Dieter. We emailed back and forth. She would tell me if she heard things. I remained in contact with my mentor teacher from student teaching. She kind of helped me keep an eye out for certain job openings. But all the schools in Spokane were in a halt for finding available positions. And at that point, about early August, I gave up, and I just thought, you know what? I don't think this is going to happen. And luckily, substituting is something I could fall back on, but that was nothing I ever imagined I would have to start doing, because I knew I wanted to be getting into special ed teaching. So I would say the hardest part was just I wasn't hearing anything back all summer. It was really discouraging, and there were times I just wanted to give up and stop trying. But luckily, my family and the people in my corner and myself, I knew that I just had to keep trying. I had to keep applying. And I think what really, really helped me was knowing the people that I knew and building the relationships I did build with my mentors. And that eventually helped me get an interview for Hallett Elementary and Medical Lake. This principal that reached out to me happened to be working with the principal where I student taught. And she asked him if he knew any special education teachers that would be able to fill a position at Hallett Elementary. And my principal got in contact with my mentor teacher, and my mentor teacher got in contact with me. And in a matter of 3 days, on a Thursday at the end of September, I applied at 10 p.m. at night on a Thursday. I got a call for an interview that following Friday in the morning. I interviewed that Tuesday at noon, and I got the job offer at 2:30 on that Tuesday. So it was only 2 hours. It was a very fast process. And then they asked me if I could start the next day. And I was like, you're crazy. I don't know how you think I can do that. However, I think the things that really helped me was, one, being kind of flexible. I realized a first job, you can't necessarily be really picky. I knew that I wanted a certain location. I had a certain age group I wanted. I had a certain school I wanted. And I think the most important thing in the beginning is getting your foot in the door. You don't necessarily have to have your dream position right away. I ended up being really fortunate in working with preschoolers, which is the exact population or demographic of kids I wanted. However, it wasn't ideal to hear that I'd be in Medical Lake because it's about a 30-minute drive. But nonetheless, because of the connections I built, student teaching and at Gonzaga, I did get hired, and I've been going every day, and it's the best decision I could have made. It's super awesome. I'm happy to be there. And even though it's a little bit of a drive, in the end, everything was worth it. And I'm so pleased to be a teacher there. Oh, Erin, I think your microphone's off.
Thank you. Thanks, Alexis. No, that's a great example of using your connections and people who could really speak to your work because they'd experienced working with you. So that's wonderful. Dominic, why don't you share with us your journey?
Definitely. Thank you, Erin. So I went through 2 different job searches from middle of December through about the end of August in 2020. So I graduated with business admin degree, concentration in finance, and then a sport management minor. So originally I had always wanted to work in professional baseball. I grew up playing it, favorite sport. Hence the sport management minor. I always wanted to go into the front office of a professional baseball team. So my first job I accepted in January was with the San Diego Padres to be an intern for the Tri-City Dust Devils, just a little bit south of Spokane. And if any of you follow sports or kind of been just following just general COVID news, sports were shut down pretty much from March all the way through, the middle of July. And so when baseball was struggling to get back on track, my position kind of disappeared. So in mid-June, the opportunity I had went away. So I kind of thought about, all right, what's the next move here? What do I do? Do I find something temporary until like next December, January to possibly find another opportunity in baseball? Or do I kind of look and fall back on the finance? And I've always had an interest in real estate and also with professional development, things like that. And so I said, oh, let's try and see what I can find in the job market and throw my hand out there. So I focused on professional services, financial services, and then real estate as well. And so I kind of just started applying. I think my biggest thing was when I applied to a position, I tried to make contact with those people. So at first I tried to find emails, but with some of these bigger companies out in the industry, it's very, very difficult to find just someone's direct email. So contacting through LinkedIn, kind of how what Ray pulled up on his presentation before we all started kind of talking here, is trying to make as many contacts as possible. I also got fortunate that my uncle was able to offer me a small position with his small regional real estate company down in San Diego. So it wasn't my full-time job looking for a new position, but it was a long process every day, kind of going to work 8 hours a day, then coming home and applying for jobs and trying to stay on top of that communication. I made like an Excel sheet to keep track of all my contacts, what job I applied for, who I contacted, when they got back to me, if they got back to me, when I should follow up, if I should follow up, when I should try and find another person. Something that I found that was helpful is you can reach out to HR people within the companies that you're applying to, but generally you want to try and find the hiring manager of whatever position you're applying for. They're going to have more information on the position. They're going to have more insight, and general HR or campus recruiters, they're typically going to push you off to those hiring managers. So try any connection. It'll get you to hopefully where you want to go. I would say another challenge was looking at the applications online and seeing that an entry-level position wanted 4 to 5 years of experience. And I said, I just graduated and this is an entry-level position. I think my biggest example was I applied for a corporate development role at Starbucks, and through a couple connections I had made within Starbucks, they got me to the hiring manager for the finance department. And during the kind of preliminary interview, he asked me, oh, do you have 4 to 5 years in investment banking experience? And I kind of just chuckled and said, no, I just graduated. And so he said, well, that's kind of the one main sticking point we want for this position. So, keep in contact with me and we'll see what ends up happening. Shortly after that, the position opened up I was offered the position with KBC, and it was an excellent position, and I needed to jump on this opportunity that I currently have now. So I didn't end up utilizing that connection down the road, but take any phone call and take any interview with anybody. Even if it ends up being a waste of your time, you still might learn something. You still might be able to have them pass you on to someone that's going to make it worth your time or help you get to where you want to be as far as professionally. I would say contacts and know your strengths and really try and highlight those throughout discussing with people. That'll go a long way. And I also wrote handwritten thank you notes as well to most of the people that interviewed me. I know you might think, oh, well, it's probably not going to get to people. The people that I interviewed with KBC, even though they're not in the office and I'm currently working remotely, they all ended up receiving those thank you notes because someone was going by the office and picking up that mail. So things are still operating a little more normal than you would maybe think on that end, but definitely utilize your resources, utilize your contacts, lean on Gonzaga. They were extremely helpful throughout my entire job search. So utilize your resources.
Thanks, Dominic. Great tips about how you organized yourself and how you were persistent, really being persistent to get through to those contacts. Sarah, now let's hear from you.
Hi. So when I was studying at Gonzaga, I studied business admin with concentrations in human resources, operations, as well as marketing. And then I was a psych minor. All that being said, it would be clear to say that I didn't necessarily know where I wanted to go post-grad because I had a lot of different options ahead of me. So what I did know, though, was where I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to go back home, which was Phoenix for me. So with that location in mind, I was able to connect with Vicky from CPD. I asked her, Vicky, I know my location, but I don't know anything else. She said, what you need to do is go to ZAG alumni on LinkedIn, filter by location, and just start reaching out to every single person you know. Obviously, if they're in the industry you want, or if they have the job title you want, that's more preferred, but any person will do, because the reality of the matter is you will have way more in common with individuals than you ever imagine. So just reach out to them. And that's what I did. I set up 15 to 30-minute phone calls with probably at least 25 people within the time span of 2 weeks, which sounds like a lot. And it was a little overloading, but this was in March when we were just quarantining, and it was a good amount because it felt like a little class. Like, it wasn't a full-time job, but it wasn't just something you can do willy-nilly. You do need to commit to it. And having these phone calls were always ways that I could reinvest my energy into someone else and also have something to keep me accountable, because I was able to contact somebody else. So in these phone calls, I had just some outlying questions based on their LinkedIn profile, but I actually went into a lot of them pretty open-ended and on purpose, not because I didn't want to do my homework, but rather I wanted to see where the conversation would take me, and being open to what they had to offer me versus having a bank of questions to read from, to the point where maybe I limited them as an individual to give me all that they could. So I think that's something to be considerate of too, is remembering that they're the subject matter and what they're the subject matter in. So you might not know all the questions to ask, but being open to letting the conversation flow is okay too. Within these phone calls, though, a lot of the people I talked to had actually known each other because they were all Phoenix alum. And so few of them ran into each other, and it was by contacting all these individuals that one of them in particular was able to get me a tour into Vanguard. And this is right before their campus had shut down. So I had a chance to tour the campus, and I specifically told her I don't want a corporate job, which is exactly what I have now. And she pointed out a lot of the reasons why maybe having a corporate job might actually be very much up my alley, and ways that the values that I had wanted for myself, which was community, a sense of belonging, the way to give back to something greater than myself, how these traits that I need in my next job are actually easily aligned with Vanguard's goals. So I think that's important too, is what is it that you're looking for yourself, and can you bullet point those and carry that into whatever jobs you're applying for? Because it's one thing to get a job, and it's another thing to get a job that you actually care about, right? Or something that you're invested in that can give back to you what it is that you're looking to give in. Challenging parts were being patient, which I think a lot of people can resonate with too. I'm really lucky. My entire process beginning to end with Vanguard only took a month. And I know that other people started applying way back in November and didn't hear back until around March when I did as well. So just know that the timeline for yourself isn't the timeline for everyone, and that just being kind to the recruiting, the hiring managers, as Dominique said, and following up with them is going to be the biggest thing you can do for yourself. And Vicky helped me a lot with that process. Was, when do I follow up? I followed up probably 10 a.m. on, I want to say a Thursday, and by 3 p.m. that afternoon, I had had a phone call for a job offer. Similar to Alexis too, where it just comes and you didn't even realize it was coming, but a lot of people are working behind the scenes to make it work out for you. So be patient and give them the, the chance to get that on for you. I think that's it. I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Very helpful. And I'm glad that our Gonzaga alumni in the Phoenix area were helpful.
Yes, I was so blessed.
That's just an example. When she talks about these calls or these informational interviews, as we call them, our alumni are fantastic resources. Our mentors, our chapter leaders all over the country, these are people who are more than happy to have a call with you, follow up, continue to help you network.
Yeah, and I was really worried that I would be interrupting them, or, like we just switched into working from home. Everyone's way too busy trying to figure out a new schedule that they would not have time for me. But it's very complimentary that you would reach out to them, and also speaks highly of yourself that you're willing to put yourself out there. A lot of people gave me kudos, and not to praise myself, but just know like you are putting yourself out there, and that is a good thing. And a lot of people will praise you for doing so. So just be comfortable doing it yourself.
Exactly. Oh, that's a great reminder. And now Taylor, we'll hear from you.
Hi, everybody. As Erin said, I'm Taylor. I graduated in May with a major in international relations and a minor in economics. And then in June, I accepted an offer to become an executive fellow through California State, which is basically a nationally recognized public policy program where I'll take graduate classes and then also work as full-time staff for a department within California's executive branch. My backtracking, my how I got here story really sums up to, as everyone else touched on, the relationships I built over my 4 years at Gonzaga. I came in as a freshman knowing I wanted to do something in economic development and community building, but I had no idea what that would look like. There's no set career path really if you want to go into nonprofit work or government work. And I struggled a lot with knowing where to start and what experiences or skill set I may need as I started my job search 4 years later. So I reached out to CPD at the time, and they recommended beginning the whole creating my professional connection kind of infrastructure. So at that point, it was GAMP, the mentoring program. And through there, I got set up with 5 people. I'm naturally kind of introverted. So at the time, the idea of an informational interview was terrifying to me. And what I realized is, kind of as Sarah was saying, you always have something in common with the people you speak to. It's actually very easy, especially if they're Gonzaga alumni. And as I moved on throughout the years, if they had worked at the same place I interned at, or if they were involved with the same nonprofit, it just gets easy finding those common links. It's definitely a skill to build. And then from the GAMP program, I started looking on LinkedIn for people who were alumni that worked at nonprofits or worked in government. And then, as I said, as I went on to do internships, I would make sure, especially in internships where I was talking to clients or meeting with other people in the field, I would make sure to put in that effort at the time to introduce myself, talk about myself in my internship, ask them about things. And then I knew I could reach out later on LinkedIn and ask for an informational interview. So during those times, I could have just been sitting at my desk or, just kind of showing someone to the conference room. I made sure to engage, and I think that made a really big difference for me. That being said, one of the hardest things I think about making connections and holding those connections throughout years is the periodically reaching out part. I always assumed I was bothering people, and I've realized as time has gone on that people actually do want to make that connection and help you and mentor you. One of those connections for me that I felt like I was bothering for years and years was a woman named Danielle, who's the LA alumni chapter head. I had reached out to her to find more alumni, and it turned out she worked in political consulting, and I ended up interning with her my senior year. And she's the one who recommended me to my fellowship. So I think kind of a small difference with the fellowship I'm beginning in October and everyone else on the panel that was a very traditional fellowship application structure, as in I had to submit essays. It was almost more like applying to a graduate school than applying for a job. It was like a very formalized process. And that process began for me in February of 2020 when I submitted my application pre-coronavirus. And really when I was submitting that application, I think what made the difference was while I was writing those essays and while I was meeting with CPD and asking professors to look over them, I also reached out to people I knew in the industry who I had worked for years to build that connection with. And by then I felt comfortable asking for kind of like the heavier or like more labor intensive task of reading through my essays and giving me advice. And I did that also during the interviewing process a few months later. And I think that was kind of my biggest takeaway, was that if you put in that work and if you invest in other people's lives too, like making sure you're reaching back out. When coronavirus happened, I reached back out to a lot of people and asked like how they were and like how their professional life had changed and all of that. Like the more reaching out you do, the more people are willing to like help you, and the more you come to mind if they have an open position or they have some extra time for a call. And I think that's like the biggest advice I could give. And also that with anything, reaching out to people is like very much a muscle you have to exercise and very much a skill set. And as you do it, you get better and better. So even if you have a bad informational interview or someone says no to you, just focus on the people who say yes. And yeah, just really focus on that. And I think that has been kind of the biggest thing for me and one of the biggest reasons why I got the position I have.
Oh, thanks, Taylor. Yeah, I really like what you say about building relationships in an authentic way where you are checking in, you're asking about them. And I'm glad you had great luck with the mentors as well. We've had great response since the pandemic from our alumni and our mentors. How can we help the class of 2020? How can we help our graduates? And just this summer alone, we've had about 250 new mentors sign up. So they want to hear from you. They want to help. So know that this resource is there. At this point, I'm going to open it up for questions from our participants. We have a fairly intimate group today. So if you have any questions, go ahead and just unmute yourself and direct your question to one of our panelists or Ray or myself. And if anyone would prefer using chat, you can do that also, and I will field those.
I'm going to ask a question. If each one of you who were on the panel would just say one thing that you did to help yourself when you started getting stressed, like what was the thing you would do to kind of, I don't know, chill out a little bit? Why don't we go in the same order with Alexis, Dominic, Sarah, and Taylor?
I think we all experienced an immense amount of stress during this time trying to find a job. And for me, what it is don't doubt yourself. Don't question your abilities. I remember for a second, I was like, well, maybe, I don't know. Like, obviously, if I haven't been getting any interviews, maybe I did something wrong. I didn't work as hard to connect with people as I did. No, none of that is true. This is a really interesting, weird time that no one could have planned for. And I'm just going to say right now, it's not about you. It's just about the crazy world that we live in. It's about what's available out there. And I just think reminding yourself, and a lot of your love, surrounding yourself with loved ones who help you remind yourself that you put in a minimum of 4 years to do what you are trying to do. You do it for a reason, and you are skilled. You are an expert in your field, and just, it's not about you. Don't give up. The reason you're not getting a job right now, it's not because you're not capable. It's because it's crazy time, and just keep your head up. Don't stop trying. And also, the job's not going to always come to you, especially during this time. So do everything you can in your power to make yourself available. Reach out, do LinkedIn, talk to your mentors, really utilize all your resources and have faith in yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I think my peak of stress throughout this entire process was kind of when I was like, okay, I'm working 8 hours a day. I'm going home. I'm trying to stay on top of all these connections. I'm filling my week with lunch breaks of talking to people, informational interviews, all these things kind of piled together. And the position I had with my uncle, I was very fortunate to have it, but it was not where I wanted to be. And I was like, I need to get out of this. I need to find something that I'm passionate about doing. And so I called my parents and I said, do I need to quit this temporary job that I have to focus and make this my full-time job? And it became kind of a, well, do I want the income? Do I need the income? Which was definitely a yes, and part of that answer. But it was kind of just a nice reset, talking to my parents and kind of saying, hey, it's not all that crazy. And even though I'm using lunch breaks or getting up early, at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. to talk to somebody because that's when they could do it versus, on my lunch break, it was kind of just reset. I took a couple days from trying to reach out to people. If someone got back to me, then I would of course respond and reply, but I took a quick break of coming home at 5:15 and then getting right on the computer and starting applying for jobs. Take a couple days if you need to. It's a stressful time. There's so many different factors and variables that are going into all of this, and keep your mental health up. And if you need something, if you need a reset button, everyone's different and what that reset button might be. But that was definitely a point for me where I was like, okay, I need to take a quick break here to just decompress a little bit and kind of focus up and get my head a little bit level and around the situation a little bit better. And it ended up really helping me kind of be a little more patient, because I was growing very impatient at that point.
Sarah, I think you're next. What was the thing you did to help yourself chill out?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think both of them hit on it a lot. What I did for myself, I think what you need to do is like take a little bite here and a little bite there. Like, it does not have to be like Dominic said, you don't have to get home at 5 and sit down for like 3 hours doing it. You can do like 15 minutes here or 10 minutes there. I didn't start applying for jobs post-grad until March because I had so much paralysis that I was going to have to sit down and get like so deep into the web for hours and hours and hours. And so I would just never set aside the time to do that, because that was my only mindset, was that once you do sit down, you're sitting down for like a few hours to do this. So I think that's really what it boiled down for me, was giving myself a lot of grace. And then when I did start, just like setting, maybe, I don't know, it's different for everybody, but like if you need to, just set like a 30-minute timer and just do the most you can within 30 minutes and walk away. I think that's really hard, is to walk away, especially when everything isn't like so within your touch point on the screens, and you can't really get away because you're just at home all the time. So setting some like true boundaries for yourself, and you're going to need to set them for your job anyway, so you might as well get good at it now.
For me, it's a lot of what everyone else said. Like, self-care has been really key during this time. I also really thought it was useful to remind myself that behind every like, yay, I got a job LinkedIn post is like a story about ours and the same stress, and that it's just in general a very difficult time. I know so many like extremely accomplished people who I feel worked 12 times harder than I did who are still looking. And that doesn't mean that they've done anything wrong during this process. One of the things I kind of relied on a lot when I was feeling stressed during my search, and like waiting for people to get back to me, was taking the time to focus on like who I was, like why it was I wanted to do what I wanted to do, especially because I'd always focused around like one subject matter. Like, why was I passionate about that thing? And it always kind of brought me back and gave me a renewed sense of vigor to do that one more application, or just like do a little more of that work, because I was like, I do want this. Like, I want to be able to work with these communities, and I want to be able to like somehow do something related to policy. And I think that helped me a lot, was just like getting back in touch with who I was outside of the whole like job search craziness. And it gave me a lot more motivation, I think.
Oh, those are all great strategies. Thank you for sharing. I have another question that came in to me through chat. This is for any of the panelists. What did you find to be good conversation starters when reaching out to potential connections?
For me, I guess I'll go. One thing that employers love is when you show excitement about what they're about. Just kind of like Taylor said, she kind of said, why do I like this job? Why is this what I want to do? You spent 4 years minimum spending all your time focusing on what you are now experts in. And now it's your time to show why you want to do that, why it's important, why this company, why this school, why this firm. And for me, you just kind of talk about, I researched my district, I researched my elementary school, and my conversation starters were about, what's the environment like in the school here? What are our kids like? Showing them that you're excited about what they are about and kind of relating in that area. So I definitely think a great conversation starter is using your authentic excitement and your interest in who you're interviewing with or applying for. And I think after that, it all just kind of comes naturally.
If I could go next, just because I sent that in the chat. What I sent in the chat was a general script that I actually just sent to a lot of the LinkedIn individuals who I was partnering up with in real time. So as I had said earlier, giving a specific duration is really good for you, but it's also good for them because they know what they're committing to before they say yes. A lot of people, when you just say like, hey, can I talk to you? Well, how much are you, asking for out of them? And do they have the energy to give you what it is that you truly need? Or would they be shortchanging you and your time? So asking for 15 minutes or 30 minutes gave them boundaries that they were good with, as well as you. When I did these, though, similar to others, you just find things that are so commonplace. So when it's DAG alum, you've already got it taken care of. When it's not alums, though, looking at their industry, looking at the activities that they're involved in on LinkedIn, like some people might have been part of AKSI of their school, or whatever the equivalent would be, right? Or just various things like that. And I think that those easy touch points happen. If you don't even find a LinkedIn, you cannot find their social media anywhere. Just simple things like, tell me about your day-to-day. What do you do on a day-to-day basis? Why do you love your job? Or about a past job, what was it that didn't work out for you and how did you know to pivot left or right? I talked to an individual who was doing sales, and the idea of sales just does not appeal to me in the slightest. But let me tell you, he really sold me on the concept of sales, and it made me want to get a job in it, because he's just really good at talking. Like, people are so interested in talking about themselves, and it's not a rude thing to say that. I think it's very factual, and it's very much human nature that people want to talk about themselves. So be ready to listen and just get them to say as much as they can within that 30 minutes that you have them.
And yeah, I just wanted to echo what Sarah kind of just covered. And for me personally, I did something very similar to that. With sometimes I would apply to a job and then research, the hiring manager, people in the field, hiring managers, anyone in HR, campus recruiters, kind of like I mentioned in my previous 3 minutes at the beginning. And it was something very laid out like that. And I kind of treated it as a 3-sentence cover letter. Kind of, hi, my name's Dominic Vinti. I'm a recent graduate. Here's my background, like a sentence on my background. Pick something out in the job description that really interested me. I would just like to speak to you about the position, and just keep it very informational, not, hey, you need to, interview me for the job. Just, hey, I want to just talk about the job. And typically those first wave of people that are going to be interviewing you, it is more of a get to know you interview. Then they pass you on to someone that might have a little bit more detailed questions about what it entails and your background and how that applies to why you would be a good fit for that specific position. Most preliminary informational interviews are just getting to know you as a person.
Yeah, I resonate a lot with what Dominic said about making sure that when you initially reach out to someone, you're adding things that are either tailored to like their own experience or something specifically about the company or the organization. Like where I found the most success in reaching out to people, both for like jobs in the past and then also just for connections, is saying like, I've seen you've worked in this subject matter. I'm really interested in working in that too. And like, this is how I've demonstrated my interest in the past. I'm definitely guilty of doing a lot of research and then kind of like fluffing some experiences I've had, not lying, but just saying like, oh, I read your report on this for a project I did at school, and I'd love to talk to you about it. Then you have to read it if they do actually want to call with you, which is a really important caveat, but it's a really good way of getting yourself in the door. And I also think like at first stuff like that kind of scared. Remembering where someone went to school and like looking at their LinkedIn, like obviously showing you had looked and done your research. On a personal level, at least when people will reach out to me with questions, I'm always like so flattered to know what I've done and they've taken the time to prepare for the call. So yeah, I think a lot of that is just being personal.
Great. Sarah, did you have something else you wanted to add? Okay.
No, thank you.
Any other questions? Well, I'm going to just talk briefly about a couple of our services that we want to make sure you're all using. We've referenced ZGS Connect. Our ZGS Connect is our online mentoring and networking platform for the Gonzaga community. So think of it as a LinkedIn exclusively for Gonzaga alumni, students, and friends. This is what it looks like here on the screen. Once you build your profile, which just takes a few minutes, you can explore the community and you can browse all of our almost 900 mentors who are on the platform now, covering a wide variety of career fields all over the country as well as abroad. You can take a look at anyone, click on their profile, look at their background, and anyone who's interesting to you, you can select send message, and you can compose a quick message to them. It pulls up some templates. Of course, we encourage you to do a tailored message, and you can even select a time to meet with them, whether that be over the phone, virtually, and at some point perhaps in person for coffee. So use these mentors. As we've said, they want to hear from you. They volunteered to do this. They signed up enthusiastically to help other ZAGs, especially your class. And a new feature as part of ZGS Connect is you'll see when you look at the top panel here, home, explore the community, group, discussions, resources, projects. So projects, this is something that we started as a result of this complicated time where alumni and mentors who are on ZGS Connect can actually go into projects and post professional work projects for our students and alums to do. Now, this is a response to perhaps internships being canceled, lack of job opportunities. You can go in browse the projects, apply for one, and then start working with these mentors on something. This is a great resume builder, and it's a great way to use your time productively while you're still seeking for a position. Some examples of projects are doing data analysis, creating a community engagement plan, website design. So there's been a good variety of things for people with different interests. So I strongly recommend you do that and keep an eye on the projects. ZGS Connect, the link is here, zgsconnect.gonzaga.edu, and then let me know if there's anything we can help with. Of course, I know some of you have been using our career coaching services. That's something we encourage you to do for anything that you have coming up. Maybe you have an interview coming up. You want to do a mock interview with us. Have us review that cover letter that you've tailored. Please reach out to us at any time for additional help throughout this time.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And congratulations to our class of 2020 alums who are out there setting the world on fire with the amazing things that they do. And if you're still looking, please reach out to us, and we'd love to be talking to you and helping you along the way. So thank you for coming tonight, and you all have a great evening.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
to our panelists. Thank you.